everybody, I'm Paul Yeager. Welcome into the MTOM show studio here at Iowa PBS. I'm Paul Yeager. Glad to have you here in our studio. And my hands are starting to give a little bit of an indication that things have changed. If you only listen to this podcast, which if it is the way you consume it, thank you. But if you watch, you'll notice some things have changed. And we'll get into that in a moment at the end of this discussion. I'll tell you ways that you can be a part of this podcast. Kind of fun. Today, we're visiting with our old friend, April Hemis. And when I say I don't mean old as an age, I mean this is an energetic, infectious personality farmer from Franklin County, Iowa. Hampton, Iowa is where April Hemis is from. We've had her on before. She is the star, and I mean that, of Combine Karaoke, an idea that she talks about where the source of was. She also is well known for her interviews with other media outlets. We'll talk about one of my favorites and why she feels that's important for her to be on that platform. We're going to discuss the year that was 2023. We're also going to find out what her roles with the Iowa Soybean Association, which is a sometimes sponsor of this podcast from time to time. You will see their mention. So I just need to get that out of the way. The Soybean Association did not contribute to the connection with April because we had her as a guest prior to that partnership that we have. So just get that disclaimer out of the way. But April is someone that we keep running into in agriculture, and you are going to want to hear what she has to say about farming in the year 2023 and what's ahead in 2024 in this installment of the program. Welcome into our room. You've never seen this room on TV.
I have never. When I did this before, it was over Zoom. So, yeah, people got to see the backside of my closet or something.
I think so. I think a lot of people's closets in the Zoom era were in a lot of meetings, and they're still. I set up backgrounds. I still have a background in basement where I record some of these, but this is in the building.
I know, but the fake backgrounds on Zoom just don't cut it for me, because you try to put it in there. But I want all these listeners to know you have duct tape in here, Gorilla tape, and I bet you use it.
We actually call that gaff tape. It's a little different. It's not quite as sticky. It's used to tape. That's how you didn't trip on the cord on the floor.
Gotcha.
When you came in.
Well, I was looking for baling wire too, but I don't see any.
So. That would be a good prop right here.
So.
Get some baling wire right here, and that would we
True
would just
farm
have
show then.
We would have a mess of all of the. I still have some at home that I use. I use that for everything.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Get made fun of. Why do you have that, Mike? Because it works for many things.
Yeah.
The Zoom background in your home. Now, what I wanted to interview you one time was in your combine. How many interviews have you done in your combine?
Ooh, a few, actually. Yeah, a few. And the record for people in my combine is 5. Now, people always ask me, how do you get that many women in your combine for Combine Karaoke? And which I'm guessing you're leading towards. And the most was when they were interviewing me about what can we do for you. I think it was John Deere or somebody, like, how can we help you? And I'm like, logistics. They wanted me to say, I'm like, no, I'm a one-woman show. I got to know where I'm going that day, what I'm doing, where I'm going to end up, who do I have to call for a ride? And they're like, yeah, well, sorry, lady,
We wanted to hear more about a gear shifter instead, right?
Exactly.
Not a USB port.
Yes, exactly.
Now, how many screens do you have in front of you when you're going down?
In the combine?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then maybe my phone, because you put it on auto steer and then you're on my phone. Yeah.
How was Combine Karaoke? Season 2?
3.
How was season 3?
Season 3 was wonderful because I started with a monologue, and I found out people really like that. And it was an honest-to-God true story. My husband was giving me one of those rides, I need to be shuttling the equipment, and then he does the laundry in my house. I don't do laundry. And I said, have you seen my crop top? And he looked at me with sheer horror and went, crop top? And I go, yeah, crop top. And he goes, you have a crop top? And I go, yeah, we wear them every year for Combine Karaoke. And he goes, like one that shows your belly? And I go, oh, good Lord, no. No, it has a ear of corn on it. So, no.
I'm not laughing as hard as I did because I've seen the bit.
Yes.
I've seen the monologue. But
It's for real.
I was uncomfortable like your husband right there.
Yeah.
Going, what do you mean your
my
crop top?
gosh.
I don't think I have that. Okay, I know what that means. I don't know
I
what
don't
that
want to
means.
see that. So yeah. No.
Do you find that people they enjoy a good play on words?
They do. They do. And I've had only a few farmers go, "Why do you do that?" And I go, "Are you kidding me? It's fun."
Mm-hmm.
And we have fun, and it's some legislators and another lady that writes for, she works for a company that does a lot of writing for agriculture. So, we talk ag, and then I always like to say, it's like, "Are we recording?" I go, "Oh, yeah, this is live," when they're telling the scoop of the Iowa State House. And they're like, "No." But no, and I swear I was at Walmart this year, and this lady comes up to me, "Are you April?" And I'm like, "Yeah, do I know you from somewhere?" She goes, "Combine karaoke. I look forward to it every year." So I've made Walmart now. Yeah. But it's just fun, and we have a great time doing it, and it shows the world when we put it out there, it's not all serious farming, and we can have a good time, and,
Is the cast the same?
It's always the same.
Yeah. And who are the group people that you have in?
Yeah, so Annette Sweeney, she's an Iowa senator. Shannon Latham Seeds, and she's an Iowa representative. And Julianne Johnston, who works for Morgan Myers and does a lot of Iowa corn things and works for Iowa Soybean for cyst nematode, does a lot of the research, writing, and things like that. So I have no idea, and it started with you, and we can't even remember how I said it.
It was a Zoom interview.
Yes, it was.
And we were talking about, because there's another person that that has interviewed you.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
And I said, well, it sounds like you should do combine karaoke.
Like combine karaoke. Yeah.
And so that's
So
what it
it's
is.
your fault. And so then I had to do it. Once I said it on your podcast, it's like, "When are we doing it?" And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. So
you've done it 3 years, and you've had the response. This year, I think, did you up your game with like a screen with words?
we did that last year,
Was that
too.
last year? Okay.
The problem is I have to make sure I'm in a field where I have cell reception. And in my part of the world, I'm in between two cell towers. So, a little shout out to get that broadband going. So,
we need some help in rural broadband.
Yes, we do.
Saying.
So, but yeah, we just they look forward to it, and we set the date. And so I always joke. So I have a real live husband who doesn't farm with me or moves me around, but I have a farming husband, I call him. And like whenever I say, "Okay, it's combine karaoke night," it's like, Homer Simpson backs into the bushes. He's like, "Nope." Well, this year he goes, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, you can haul the loads home and come back," because I think it was supposed to rain one of those nights. And the girls are like, come on in. And he's like, "Nope. And he just backed away. So we've tried to get more, but yeah, it's just the 4 girls.
He's played along, but he's not going to play along like that.
He's not going to sing along.
It's not sing along.
There you go.
The guy that I refer to, the interview, is Kai Richardson on a public radio show called Marketplace. Kai, great background, I certainly get the sense he always loves to talk to people. And he asked you this year about how the crop was. So I'm going to steal a line from him.
Okay.
Well, April, how's the crop this year?
How's the crop this year? Yeah, I love doing Marketplace because it is a huge platform to have a farmer herd that we don't always get, and I get to explain farming and what we do. And then so I've whined about, we don't have any rain. Earlier when I did my thing, I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going to have a crop." And then this time I said, "Well, Kai, farmers have to lose their crop about 3 times on average a year." But I said I must have been Goldilocks. We got half the rain, but just at the right time. So I hauled in record yields both in corn and soybeans. But 5 miles north of me, not so good, and 10 miles south. So I was just lucky.
Truly Goldilocks.
Yes.
And you're part of the area, and knowing that it's great growing conditions all around you. Yep. But to know that it can be so fine
Oh,
What's that make you think of when you do get the rain?
thankful, and we were just talking about that today at our Iowa soybean meeting. It's like, we got, this a little bit of rain in July and then that a bigger rain in August. And I remember saying to my husband, that just made my crop. Because I watch market to market and I'm like, okay, I should sell, but I don't think I'm going to have a crop. In June, it was not looking good at all, especially my soybeans. And so now we're all like, why didn't we sell back then? But you never underestimate what they're doing in technology and seeds now. How they, grow, how we're managing our weeds better. It's truly amazing. And then they said, how are you going to plan for next year? And I go, same as I always do. We could have record rain next spring. Who knows? It's Iowa.
But we're dry right now.
Yes, we are.
And that's different than last year at this time where we did have recharge soils.
Little bit.
Does that give you a little pause that maybe next year could be different if nothing changes?
Yes. I was just we have a women's grain marketing group, and they just had a presentation on that. It's like we have tapped out that subsoil now because they were showing the moisture levels. And so here we go again. What do you do though? We're farmers. We're the eternal optimists. So I'm buying the seed now and load the planter and go in April.
You get the rain at the right time, but it was the heat that came after the rain. And I also contend that the heat came after pollination. That could have been a totally different crop.
Right.
Had the heat came in early July,
right,
not late
not
July,
later.
right?
Right, exactly. And then what we got were cooler nights. So a lot of times it's so hot, but then it will cool down. You might get that dew on the soybeans. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But, those hot days are brutal on an old lady like me. I'm telling you.
What's the conversation like when you do go to town, which is 5 miles from the house or 10 miles, and you go, somewhere else, and you find out it's not so good for someone else?
Yeah.
Is it law of averages? Do you think it works out?
Well, you get the, isn't that nice? You had a great crop. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're in the sand over there. But yeah, the guy who helps my farming husband said, don't talk about your good crop to this person or just know where they farm because a lot of them were below average. So but luckily I go to coffee with farmers that live a couple miles from me. So we were all very happy. But other farmers who farm a larger area said, my best bean field was right across the road from you, April, or right across the fence, but didn't do so well north or south. So, yeah.
Have you seen a year like this before?
Oh, yeah, 2012.
Yeah.
You could write the soil map. You could. I remember going through and getting almost 0 on corn and then going up to 250 in the same pass, so it's all about the soils, and aren't we blessed in Iowa to have the soils we have that can hold that moisture so we still can, get those crops.
You are on the Iowa Soybean Association Board of Directors, but you're also on the, American Soybean Association? United Soybean Board.
The checkoff board.
So what's the conversation like on the United front when it's a little more national when you chat?
Well, I had to apologize because I was kind of a big whiner in July when I was there, and I'm the demand committee chair, and so I made them answer roll call with, what do you think your crop's going to be, above average or below? And most everybody said average. So I was the whiner that, there was some of us in the Midwest were like, no, bad. And then I have to come back, and we just had our meeting last week, and it was like, I had a record crop. So, I had to eat crow, but, that's okay.
Did others have to eat crow too?
Yeah, some were, like Ohio was really wet, and Indiana was wet in parts. So it was absolutely the same thing as Iowa, where it was spotty. Some people had great crops, other people didn't. So, we're farmers. We know there's always next year.
What is the conversation like with those that have marketed grain? How many have locked doors or opened them up?
No, nobody's opened them up. No, everybody that I've talked to said, why didn't I sell more? Same thing as me. And I go, because we didn't think we were going to have it, And, I did some, but not enough. So they're still we're a work in progress, you know.
What's it going to take for you to sell?
I know. It is amazing, isn't it? Our local ethanol plant just had a $5 push bid, only if you marketed more next fall. And I'm like, $5, that looks good. But I didn't do it, and I don't know a whole lot of people that did. So $5 is honestly that magic number. So, but I'm blessed. I have a lot of ethanol plants around me and soybean biodiesel and soybean crush facilities 10 miles down the road. And, well, that's where I take mine to Iowa Falls. So, I'm pretty lucky there. But the people on the river who are used to having that great bid, you know, there's not grain moving.
Do you find that you might benefit once some of those facilities on the river have to say, we need product, and that might just push everybody else higher?
Yeah, it might.
Is that your eternal optimism right there?
Oh, totally.
How can it go lower?
Right.
Only higher.
It can. Oh, it can always go lower.
Do you get concerned?
Yeah.
We had a question on our Market Plus last week about, do we see the number 3 starting corn?
And that's what those of us in farming, you know, I even had a younger gentleman say, what if it's 4? And I go, I've sold corn under $2 before, but our inputs weren't nearly what they are now. So it could happen. You know, we've got to get that export going. You know, everybody keeps talking about SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, and that's going to save the day. But all these regulations have to come into play, and, you know, these facilities have to be built. And so it's hurry up and wait. And you just have to know, and I always say this, you have to know your cost of production, period, end of story. Know what that is costing you to put it in the ground, and as long as you're selling it for more than that, you're okay. You're not going to lose money.
You sound like Matt Bennett. That's always what he always preaches.
Yeah, yes,
know your cost of production.
Right.
You also make it sound like know your policy. You just came from an Iowa Soybean Association board meeting.
Yeah.
What's the policy push this year going to be?
Good question. 2 different things. Farm Bill. You know, we finally we have a lot of things in our Iowa policy, but not one specifically about let's get a farm bill, you know, that's good for soybean farmers, because it was a soy, and focused on that, because, you know, we're not writing legislation in Iowa soybean policy or corn. It's what do we want our people to take to our legislators. So that's the big one. Is the farm bill on the national side. Locally, who knows? We never thought a lot of this stuff was going to come up last year. We knew the grain indemnity fund would be kicked in, and I saw that on my checks. You know, all the farmers are starting to see it. It's not check off. That's the grain indemnity fund. So a lot of people, you know, get that confused. So until that gets brought up, that hopefully they're trying to find different ways to pay for it, but right now it's coming out of our check, and that's fine. You know, that's what it's there for.
And you've done enough meetings over the years to know that things change, or that's something we talked about 12 years ago.
Oh, I know.
And it's just finally happening now.
Or I'll say, why is this in here? You know, and what might not be important to me might be important to other people in Iowa. So, you know, there's always some of those, you know, so. But not a whole lot of huge concerns as far as policy. It's just updating things, so.
Where are we at on water quality? Because I know that's always a topic. That's something that's gone on. But what is the focus? How has the focus changed on the water quality discussion?
We got an update, and IWIL is coming back into the discussion, and the 3/8 sales tax and things like that. So we were just updated on that. So hopefully I take, with pride, water quality all over the world when I talk, because I talk about my farm and what I do. And I said water quality is huge in Iowa, because we know where all our water goes, down to the Gulf, and we may get blamed for that, and we don't want the regulations like they have in the Chesapeake Bay. So we take it very seriously. These are what we do on the farm. So, you know, that's a great story to tell, our nutrient reduction plan. So.
But there are those who think that you're not doing enough.
I know.
And haven't done anything. And it's like, how can you brag about being just the best of the worst or something. I mean, and
Right.
that's a story that I think you're fighting all the time.
Exactly. That and food versus fuel. So that's coming back into play too. But I think we have to do a better job at least telling what we do, and saying, well, I have, filter strips and, wetlands, and I do all these things. And it's not just me, it's my neighbors too. So, we can tell our story, but we have to say, hey, no-till is huge in my area. We do no-till. Cover crops are really coming in. So, I know we say we have to tell our story, but we have to get out there and tell it to the right people.
Who are the right people?
Anymore, isn't it the consumer? They're dictating so much of what's going on now, and the companies are listening to them. That's why we have the carbon and, carbon sequestration and a lot of that now. Everybody wants to go green. Well, it all starts on the farm. So, here we go.
Well, I think the last time we chatted, I even asked about this question that in Des Moines at my Iowa Cubs game, there was a series of ads for years now about, and it was sponsored by Iowa Soybeans, and it was telling the story of agriculture and water and environmental stewardship in an urban audience.
Yep.
Do you think that is money well spent in reaching somebody that's different than what usually might watch market to market?
Yeah, I think things like that. It's amazing how the farmer's perception has changed. I'm going on my 9th year on Iowa Soybean and United Soybean Board, and we're deciding how to spend checkoff dollars and how that very same question. And I jokingly said about 7 years ago, I said, well, if we could only have Taylor Swift tweet about how great soybeans are, our job would be done. And another farmer goes, wonder how much that would cost. And I go, more than our budget, let me tell you. But that's the reality of where we're at now, getting it out to those people. Now, will everybody agree? No, So, but just to let them know, I love having conversations with people. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's one-on-one, where it's not reaching the masses. So,
but a one-on-one conversation, sometimes people will feel more comfortable to ask you maybe a tougher question or a question they don't want to ask in front of somebody else at a meeting.
And especially being a woman too, a lot of times that helps. They don't feel as intimidated.
Oh, I was going to say
asking a woman farmer.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm saying I didn't know if you meant that people would be there. They don't want to ask you a question.
Oh no. They would engage more with a woman. I don't know. I think so, but
don't you think could be a little bit of your personality too? It's a little bit engaging.
Maybe
people want to have a conversation with you.
Could be, and I'm not afraid to have one back. I don't just dismiss and go. So yeah, I like to have those. I mean, our cab drivers, we'll get in a cab and what do you do? I'm a farmer, and he goes, and my husband I know will go, don't tell him you're a farmer.
I'm in insurance.
Either they hate it or they love it, and then it's where do you, I've talked to cab drivers, and it's like, where do you sell your things? And I go, well, I go to an ethanol plant, or my corn gets made into ethanol, and that also gets made into feed, and then without getting into it, and then the soybeans, I say, it's made into feed, and so you don't eat what you grow. No, and I don't eat what you grow, and I go, do you like bacon? Well, yeah, and I go, then you're eating what I grow. So just the story of feeding livestock and especially Iowa has such a great story, with the chickens, the layers, and the hogs that we raise. So we're very fortunate.
The national story. Let's go back to the Taylor Swift analogy for a minute. What happens if she tweets something not helpful to farming?
Well, and that's just it. So that's why we don't really do that. These are farmers from all over the country sitting around the table, and we talked about influencers and things like that, especially sports people or something and we've had that very same. That's why we've kind of gone away from. We haven't ever done that because what if? The what ifs out there. So yeah, it could be so harmful or so helpful. It can go both ways.
It goes back also to what we just talked about when Kai Richardson calls on a national public radio distributed show that is not directed at agriculture but business.
Right.
You get a chance to tell us stories.
Yeah.
And markets. I mean, it does cover markets, so there are plenty of people who trade.
Might kind of get.
They might not trade all the commodities, but they look at screens for.
They know what options are, or they know.
They might put their money in commodities, as a place to park it. I mean, and so that does help.
Yes, it does. And then our lingo, you have to remember, leave the farm lingo at the door. And what Kai is really good about is, tell me more about that. What does that mean? And so then you put it into layman's terms, things like that. So, that's what's great about having that broader audience. And then just a side story is I got a text, this last one I did, from a friend of mine who said, oh my gosh, I just heard from a friend of mine who's the former Ag Secretary of Illinois, and said that was the best farmer interview they'd ever heard. I'm like, oh, I thought I bombed it, But just to have that, but they said the same thing, just to have that voice out there and step up, say yes, when asked. So.
I've told this story before on this podcast. My father once was approached by a reporter, and he said, "Nah, I don't think I have a story to tell." And I'm like, "You're killing me." You know how many times I call farmers and they'll say no? Don't be that guy.
No, don't be, or gal.
Or gal.
Don't
right,
be that
right. Don't be that farmer.
Yes,
I should have said, don't be that farmer.
No, that's true. And I, obviously I'm not shy. I can get in front of a mic, but I go, you guys, you're just talking about your farm. You're telling your story. That's all. That's what we need to do. Get out there.
Last time I talked to you in person, we were hanging out at the World Food Prize.
Yes, we
Tell
were.
me about the global stage of the American farmer and the Iowa farmer story.
That I love the World Food Prize. I got to go with my daughter. Did the Youth Institute, so I was there before. But what shocked me, kind of surprised me, was how much the speakers up there said you have to start with the farmer. The farmer has to be at the table. And I heard that over and over again, and that made me so happy. Finally, corporate America is getting it, or the NGOs, or, because a lot of people there have this idealistic way that we should farm, and it isn't with tractors, but it's amazing how now they're getting it. If they want to do all these things, you have to start on the farm. You have to talk to us, and we can say, yeah, we can do it, or maybe not. But the U.S. farmer has such a great story to tell. We've been sustainable, raising our crops for years. So, and that's truly what they're looking for now all over the world.
And you then find, again, the one-on-one conversation. Because do you ever find yourself after a panel going, hey, I want, and then you go up and then you ask the question of someone?
Yes, that's what's great. I went to a side one of AI and agriculture that the Iowa did, and that was phenomenal. Because we think, so many times people go, what, self-driving cars? And I'm like, yeah. We've had driving tractors for a long time. In agriculture, we're what is it? Quick to, we hate change, but we're quick to adopt technologies, So it's so true. And that's what's amazing. And all those people are right there. They're there, and we get to talk with them and have that conversation, that one-on-one. And then that only helps us get better, whether it's, at a commodity group or a farmer. So, get out there.
Shortly after then, you got on a plane and went a little further away on a mission trip.
I did.
A global trade mission, is that what it would be called?
Yeah. So it was the China International Import Expo, CIIE. 500,000 people there. I can't make that. It's China. And the expo center is like 4 huge ones kind of in a clover leaf shape. And it was unbelievable. And USDA was there for the first time. U.S. Soy has always been there. So we were right there, and they had the ambassador there. For the U.S. ambassador opened it up, and the Chinese media was all over the place. And with us and talking to us. And then I got to speak at the ag session, a breakout where there were, secretaries of ag from countries. I sat right next to the CEO of Louis Dreyfus, was sitting right next to him like, oh, yeah, I'm hanging with the big dogs here. And they all got up and read their 5-minute speeches off the paper. And I got up, showed slides of my farm, a video of me combining not singing.
Oh.
Sorry.
Copyright issues.
Yes,
Copyright.
That's right.
That's fine.
That's right. No, combining, showing the great crops that we raise, and then going around and waving at the screen and showing the beans going into the hopper, and showing that these are the quality crops we're delivering to you in the world. And I have to tell you, the MC of that, he loved it. He goes, there she is. She was energetic, smiling, but it's the story, here we are out there representing the world. So I was good, and it was, people were getting a little sleepy, so I upped my game a little.
Oh, because of the pre-read meeting
Yeah, they
things.
were all
I
just
see.
like this, and I'm like, oh no, I'll wake them up. So, but that's great. I mean, when do we get audiences like that? And that's what these trade missions are for, is to showcase U.S. farmers.
So why is USDA not gone before?
I don't know why they never had one before, but in China, soybeans are kind of a big deal. So they are, of all the world, I think they import almost half of all the world's soybeans, and 1 out of every 3 rows of ours, So it's a huge, huge market and very important to them.
You had conversations, you said, with did Chinese media interview you too?
Chinese media
And what are they asking you?
So, about the farm, but then how important the relationship was, really. I mean, because they didn't say this, but it was the side talk of, does America really hate us? And what, because I said, listen, politics change. Politics are here and there, but there's one thing we know. We need your markets and you need our commodities. We need each other, and that's really the thing that we need to take away from this. And they all agreed with that. So,
Had you been to China before?
yes, many times.
Okay, so when was the last time you were there?
Well, pre-COVID-19.
Okay.
And I was shocked at the changes.
Okay,
that I
that's what
saw.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
That's what I
So
want to
I
ask.
went-
What's the change?
So after that, I say they shipped me off to southern China to do it was called a person-to-person or farmer-to-farmer. And we saw some agriculture. It was down by the ocean, so it was beautiful there. And it was amazing what we heard. So it was MARA, Ministry of Ag and Rural Affairs, who sponsored this.
And this was this trip
Yes,
this year?
this
Okay.
was both. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was both places. And what amazes me is when I've been there before, they were trying to bring the rural people into the cities, and bring them in, because it was almost half, when I first went there, almost half of the population lived rural, where we're less than 2% now. And so they were trying to bring them in. Well, now they realize, our cities are getting over, or they're getting crowded. Now they're improving infrastructure, technology for them, healthcare, because they have an aging population also. So they're improving their lives out in the country, so they stay there. So that was a huge shift. And President Xi got on I watched this, got on the TV and said he wanted all the women to stay home and start having children. And all the women I talked to of working age are like, no, child, it's too expensive. They want to work, but see, they're running into that one-child policies catching up to them.
Yeah.
So it's the dynamics of all of that are amazing.
You mentioned the city-urban debate or change, but what about when you said the policy from 19 to 23, different presidents, different ways we view. We had a trade discussion then, like we have a trade discussion now. Do you get the sense that that's changed at all?
A little bit. I think they're more open because they just approved genetically modified, where they're going to start planting it. So it's coming around, but we need to engage them in trade way more. Discussions.
Do you get the sense that they're trading fair?
Of course not.
What's going to change
I'm sorry,
that?
Can I say that out loud?
You just did, and that's.
I know.
But I mean,
China doesn't do a whole lot of things fair because they don't have to. They don't have to go to Congress and ask for anything. It's like, this is what we want. Okay, it's done. That, I mean, you really have to watch. We have to have the eyes open. You have to have your eyes open when you go into agreements with them. So, But
it
would kill agriculture. It would really hurt if if we do have another, and the tariffs are still on, which people don't understand, but they said they get waived all the time for commodities. So,
Did the tariffs work?
I went down that rabbit hole because we were talking on another program about what would a 10% across the board tariff do to agriculture and how much would it cost it. So I was looking up articles, and I didn't realize it would lower our GDP, actually. Its tariffs are not good for an economy. So that was kind of surprising to me, But I love free trade agreements. I think they're great. They're great for agriculture. So...
And that's usually the product that America can bring to the table of, this is what we can get your country.
Yep.
Our agriculture.
Yep. Yeah, we just had a former trade ambassador, who did all the negotiations, and he said, you have to be tough, but you have to keep something in your back pocket because it's going to be back and forth. You have to trade. And, there has to be some kind of, we have to give them something, but we have to get something in return. So, it's fascinating to me.
Not like giving at your relatives.
No.
Everybody has to give a little, or some give more than others.
Don't give Uncle, Harry any money.
We know where he goes with that.
Yeah.
As we look to 2024, start the new year here, what do you think will be the biggest story for you in Franklin County, Iowa?
Ooh, how dry it's going to be. Everybody's looking at that. Yeah. And talking about it, What worked for you last year? What are you going to do next year on the farming side of it? And what are you planting? But, that is truly my biggest concern is water.
Have you committed all your acres allotment and where you're going with what? Nothing's going to change you?
Nope.
Beans going to some ridiculous number isn't going to change you?
No. No, it really isn't because I don't want to mess up that rotation. And and I hate corn on corn. I do a little bit of corn on corn, but it's not my favorite thing to do. So, no, it would take a whole lot of rain not being able to get the nitrogen on, because I do liquid in the spring with my burn down. So, yeah, it would take a huge weather event for me to change.
Will the presidential election impact you at all?
Ooh, that's a really good question. If we don't get a farm bill, it will. And I think a lot of that's, weighing on that.
In the hours before we recorded this, there was another story about very much pessimism to meet that September 2024 deadline.
I know.
I guess I'm not asking for what was said in the room just a few hours ago, but is there any optimism from where you sit?
No. Unfortunately, because I've seen too many of these happen where it's like, oh, we'll give it a year extension. And then 3 weeks before, they're like, oh, crap, we got to get this thing done. So what I've heard from a lot of people is on the ag side, it's mostly done. It's the food side that needs to.
Which is 75% usually.
It's 84
okay,
now.
84 now.
I just saw a presentation on that, and that has doubled where the farm side is kind of stayed stagnant. So we'll take it, whatever, but these are huge numbers that I never thought I would see in my lifetime that we're spending.
And do you ever see, do you think that there would be a splitting of the two to get something passed?
No, I hope not, because we would never get it. We wouldn't. I don't think ag would get anything, and I've heard that from everybody I've ever talked to.
Yeah.
Keep it together, So, yeah.
Last hard question. Will there be a season 4 of Combine Karaoke?
How could we not? We're working on a disco ball next. And that was going to bring a strobe light. And I went, I don't think I can handle that. But, maybe a disco ball. The best line was, this year was, April, how long are you going to farm? And I said, until about 8:30.
That's about as far as you go.
She goes, that's not what I mean. And I said, I know, but I'm not getting any younger, and those bins aren't getting any shorter. And I said, I'll go as long as I can because I love what I do. And I'm very blessed to be able to do. Not many people get to do exactly what they want to do. And I was lucky to be born into a farming family.
We'll enjoy your crop in 2024.
Okay.
And,
And give me a request if you want requests.
okay, if I want to request,
Yes.
maybe we can get a
Or
shout
come
out.
join us.
Or come join. Yeah, there's only so much room in there, and
Oh, we got plenty.
you know,
we'll make room for you.
I'll
Paul.
ride on the.
We'll
I'll have
make
to ride
room
on the
for you.
platform. Hey, I'm out here outside the window. April, thank you so very much. Appreciate
you
the
bet.
time.
You bet. It was great.
Okay, my thanks to April. Good luck in 24. Hope the rain falls the way it does. Now, to these items that you see right here, whether it's a tractor, which is something that we've pledged before on Market to Market. Same with this mug. But then we start to have some other things that have shown up. We would like to see some of your collectibles. If there's something you think that would look good on our podcast set, send it to me at the MTOM Show Podcast, P.O. Box 6450, Johnston, Iowa, 50131. There's the address on the screen right now. You can also just send